I did not dress like a widow. I dressed like a verdict. Black silk, pearls quiet as teeth, a face the city could trust and never forgive. The elevator opened to the 43rd floor, and the air changed. Gold light, glass walls, voices softened by money. They were already seated, the lawyers with paper lungs, the junior partners blinking like newborn wolves, Daniel with his shark smile, and Celeste, white lace, red mouth, perfume that smelled like winning. They did not expect me to come. They expected me to mourn. I sat at the end of the table, where the irrelevant sit. Perfect. The executor cleared his throat. "We're here to read the last will and testament of Alexander Whitaker," he began. Words stacked into monuments, penthouse, vineyard, art, accounts. The company polished until it reflected only him. "To my devoted friend, Miss Celeste Laurent, Montauk in its entirety." The room shifted, polite envy like static. Celeste exhaled victory through her smile. "To my partner, Mr. Daniel Rhodes, controlling shares of Whitaker Rhodes, subject to Appendix B." Daniel didn't blink. Hunger never does. "To my wife, Eleanor, personal effects, contents of residence, and a stipend for her comfort. A leash braided with velvet." They looked at me the way people look at a portrait. Beautiful, harmless, past. I folded my hands and remembered how to breathe like weather. Paper turned, sounded like a wing. "Clause 13, the executor said, voice careful, sealed upon execution, to be opened only in the presence of his lawful wife." The room stilled. Even the air stood up. He broke the red seal. Read first with his eyes, then with his mouth. "To my wife, Eleanor, I leave a choice. Accept the will as read, or elect Clause 13 in its entirety." Daniel's smile lost a button. "What is its entirety?" The executor continued. "If she elects Clause 13, the following transfers occur simultaneously and irrevocably. All personal property in our primary residence, all Schedule C offshore accounts, the vineyard in full, and my proxy voting block in Whitaker Rhodes, provided she accepts the conditions that follow. 1. She acknowledges in writing that her silence during our marriage was grace, not ignorance. 2. She delivers the enclosed letter to Ms. Celeste Laurent. 3. She forgoes public claims to the Whitaker name for 1 year. Afterward, she may say anything she wishes." A hush with teeth. The executor slid a black envelope toward me. Alex's handwriting pressed deep into the cream, impatient even from the grave. Celeste watched my fingers like prey watches weather. "What does it say?" she asked. I smiled. Everything he never said out loud. "Mrs. Whitaker," the executor murmured, "you have 48 hours to—" "I don't need 48. My voice did not shake. It never does when I'm done loving a man. "I elect Clause 13. No one breathed. Then everyone did, badly. Daniel's laugh was a glass with a crack. "This is theater." "So was your partnership," I said. The executor nodded, already smaller before the machinery he served. "We'll prepare the transfers immediately. The letter, I'll deliver it myself." Celeste found courage the way drowning people find air. "Why you?" "Because ghosts keep promises." I stood, took the black envelope, left them sitting in a room designed for obedience. In the mirrored elevator doors, I met a woman who looked like a page being turned without tearing. I had come to hear my husband's last words. I left with my own. I carried the envelope down 43rd, like a pulse. The city pressed its metal mouth to my ear and said the only prayer it knows. move. I didn't go home. I went where Alex kept his truths. The penthouse that always smelled faintly of cedar and applause. "Mrs. Whitaker," the doorman said, softer than the day of the funeral. "Send the lilies to a hospital," I told him. "Let something living have the water." Inside, curated silence. His study exactly as death left it. Documents in perfect disorder. A whiskey glass rehearsing regret. On a yellow pad, I made 3 columns. Assets, people, lies. Assets, vineyard, Montauk, proxy block, Schedule C accounts. People, Daniel, Celeste, Whitfield, MD, Harlow, Esk. Every junior who would rent a spine by the hour. Lies, devoted friend, performance metrics, stipend. A USB hid where men hide their shame. Shallow, close, obvious to women. Label, A13. Folder, contingency. Ledgers, memos. The signature he practiced like a sermon. He had left me a weapon, wrapped in apology. Afternoon bled into a clean black suit and pearls. I walked 3 blocks to a limestone building that trained its doorman to recognize victory. Celeste opened the door in courtroom white. "Eleanor," she said, performing kindness, "this is yours." The envelope lay between us like a mirror. "Before you read," I said, "decide who you'll be after." She laughed where her throat didn't. Then she slit the paper, read quickly, then slowly, then as if the words might forgive themselves. Her face moved through weather, certainty, confusion, then grief with nowhere to sit. "It doesn't change the deed," she managed. "You're right," I said, turning to leave. "It changes you." In the hall, I called Harlow. "File A13, special board session, tomorrow." "Daniel will object," he warned. "He can object to the rain," I said. "It will still rain." Morning tasted like control. The boardroom filled with predators dressed as governance. "Mrs. Whitaker, this is irregular," Daniel announced. "So is fraud," I answered, laying down the wire trail. Another sheet, Schedule C, cross-signed. Another, compliance memo stamped rush, received. He didn't touch them. "You have no standing." "Clause 13, I said. "Sit." I read the lines Alex left for when he finally needed truth more than applause. If Daniel resists, check the ledgers. If Eleanor speaks, listen. Silence rolled across the glass. "Effective immediately," I said. "Mr. Rhodes is suspended pending audit. Ms. Laurent is barred from company properties. Proxy block transfers to charitable control." "You can't." "I already did." By dusk, headlines learned my name. By night, the river remembered how to shine without asking. A cream envelope arrived from Celeste. He wrote the same lies to us both. I placed it where Alex used to leave keys. I poured 1 drink, not to toast him, but to measure the quiet. Tomorrow would be the audit. The next day, the announcement. A week from now, they'd call me ruthless. A month from now, correct. Morning was coffee and the soft aftertaste of executions. I sat at his desk for the last time, sunlight cutting my reflection into precise pieces. Wife, widow, woman, weapon. Pieces are just truth on its way to coherence. The phone rang. Harlow. "Transition's complete." "Transitions," I said, "are what we call death when it happens on paper." I opened the encrypted folder, A13, transfer, hidden audits, backdoor payments, political favors, hush contracts disguised as charity. I compiled it into 1 document. Whitaker Legacy Report. Not for police, not for the board. For history. History loves facts more than feelings. By noon, a memo grew wings and found reporters. Daniel called it defamation. I called it subtraction. Remove the lies. See what's left. Celeste called, voice unraveling. You destroyed him. No, I said. He did. I turned on the lights. That evening was Alex's gala, the one he had planned to polish himself forever. Chandeliers practicing heaven, tables practicing worship. Mrs. Whitaker, the host, beamed. Our keynote? I took the podium. The lights weighed nothing. My husband built this empire, I said. He called it Whitaker Roads. But every empire is built on the names it forgets. A murmur loosened the room's tie. Tonight, per his final clause, every Whitaker holding transfers to the Whitaker Foundation for Children. Effective immediately, no profits for luxury, only legacy. Silence, then applause that didn't know what it believed in. Celeste watched me from the champagne bar, her glass shivering like a small, expensive animal. I stepped into the cold terrace. The city opened itself like a map of errors, forgiven by distance. She followed. You turned everything into charity? Yes, including his memory. Then what do you have left? Peace, I said. The one thing money can't counterfeit. She didn't answer. Some losses don't know the language of response. I slept that night without dreams. Freedom is sleep without witnesses. The city found a new religion. Gossip dressed as justice. Widow seizes control. Empire turns to air. They were close. It wasn't air. It was oxygen. Harlow called. Daniel wants mediation. Tell him to want honesty, I said. By noon, he performed pain on courthouse steps, sweating inside tailored wool. Investors corrected themselves by sunset. Loyalty changed clothes. Celeste's fall made less noise. Access revoked. Directories amended. Lease restructured. She sent a final line. Was any of it real? Silence is the only accurate answer for certain questions. I visited Alex's grave because etiquette is a kind of hygiene. Visionary, the stone declared. Yes, I said, just never for the right future. I left a copy of Clause 13 at the base, the last contract he'd ever win. On the 12th day, I met Daniel, where beginnings pretend to be innocent. The cafe of their first deal. You shouldn't be here, he said. You shouldn't have forged signatures. Do you think this makes you the hero? No, I said. The editor. You destroyed everything we built. You built on a fault line, I answered. I let it be honest. Alex said you'd never understand power. He was right, I said, standing. I don't understand power that needs witnesses. I left him with his cooling coffee and a city already forgetting his middle name. A letter without a return address arrived. Celeste's hand, careful. He lied to both of us. I loved the ambition. You loved the promise. Maybe that's punishment enough. I'm leaving the city. I fed it to the fire. Paper burns quickly. Memory chooses pace. The foundation opened its first oncology wing. No champagne, no cameras, a plaque, in memory of those who thought love was a transaction. I didn't sign it. Some victories prefer anonymity. At home, I lifted a final glass to the window. To you, Alex, I said. You claimed I couldn't play your game. I tasted the quiet. I changed the rules. 2 years taught the city new myths. They still said my name in boardrooms, like a rumor that refused retirement. They never learned the real story. They never will. Power doesn't live in headlines. It lives in what you decline to explain. The foundation grew past my intention. 5 hospitals, 3 scholarships, schools where orphans learn to read balance sheets before bedtime stories. Every building wore his name. Every decision wore mine. Daniel disappeared to some country that launders weather. Celeste, someone whispered, taught art to children in Marseille. Recognition, not forgiveness, warmed my mouth. Mornings were quiet again, black coffee, skyline climbing out of its own shadow. I put the pearls away. Freedom doesn't accessorize. Sometimes I drove to the vineyard Alex bought to impress men who no longer remember their fathers. The fields stayed green without permission. The workers called me Mrs. Whitaker. I didn't correct them. Old names open doors I don't need and soften doors I do. A young journalist found me between the rows. "They call you the Ice Queen of Finance," she said, notebook trembling. "How do you feel about that title?" "Ice is called cold," I told her. "People forget what it does best. Preserve." "Do you regret any of it?" "Regret is a luxury for those still asking permission." She didn't write it down. She will one day. My apartment now faces the river, not the skyline. No portraits, no ghosts. One photograph on the mantel. Me at 23 in a bakery apron. Flour bright on my cheekbone. Ambition still untrained. I write letters to that girl and never send them. Without her softness, I would never have learned the shape of steel. A child's letter arrived at the foundation. "Thank you, lady who saves. A heart, a house, a son." I pressed it to my chest and felt a pulse I thought I'd buried. Not forgiveness, not even joy. Grace. They named the new headquarters without me. The plaque read, "The Whitaker Center for Futures." For every child who was told to wait their turn, reporters asked for a quote in the lobby. "I didn't win," I said, walking past them into sunlight. "I remembered." That night I lit a single candle. The river carried the city away from itself. I poured one last drink. "You were right, Alex," I whispered. "Inheritance is a game." I sipped. I just rewrote it. The flame steadied. Small, calm, undefeated. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and smiled the quiet smile of someone who finally outlived her story.